G'day everyone and welcome to the Eternal Gathering. This is the Gathering here with another podcast, episode 4 I believe. And we are going to be discussing Theros Beyond Death and the cards from the set. I'm going to go through and just pick the best cards and just cards to talk about. As well as the ban restricted announcement that happened last week. Today is the 21st of January 2020, and we've had a ban restricted announcement happen last week, which affected the modern format. So I want to have a quick chat about that. So just a quick reminder for everyone listening to this podcast, just to like and subscribe for the channel to help it grow, and we'll get straight into it. We'll start off firstly with the ban restricted announcement. So the modern format had 3 cards that were banned. We had Mycosynth Lattice, Mox Opal, and Oko Thief of Crowns. Oko was obviously a card that was banned in Pioneer, Standard, and Brawl, and now it's joined them in Modern, being banned there. A card that was obviously very strong and was not really thought of by the R&D team at Wizards to be of that power level that it turned out to be. But it really warped the format, and it was 43% of the metagame had Oko in it. So I think obviously that card is the right choice in being banned. Next we have Mox Opal getting banned. Mox Opal being banned is a bit of a surprise to some. This is a long time coming kind of thing for others. For myself, I think Mox Opal was fine in terms of the decks that did run it. It did help those decks. I see the point of getting rid of it, as it can be fit into any deck really that has any artifacts as part of its strategy. But it's been in the format for so long, 11 years I believe, or 8 years, sorry, 8 years I believe, since 2011. And I mean, it's kind of been part of the format, and it didn't really need to get the ban, in my opinion. But I do see why it got banned, and I agree with the reasoning behind it. It does suck, as it was quite an expensive card. I personally don't have any copies of Mox Opal. I don't play any decks with Mox Opal. But I can imagine if I had those cards as a playset, losing that value would be really disheartening. It doesn't really kill off completely the decks that did play it, but does bring their power down substantially. Especially decks like Hardened Scales and Affinity that play it to really rush out all their cards from their hand as early as possible. But it is replaceable in some respects. I guess let's see how the meta kind of shifts with the banning. And finally, we had Mycosynth Lattice getting the ban after being in a format with Khan, a great creator, for a little while there. Yeah, okay, fair enough. It does lock your opponent out of the game. It's pretty much a 2-card win combo. And it's a replaceable card in decks that played it. It was only a one-off. And now people can kind of still use Khan. Khan is still quite a good card. Really strong. Being able to get your sideboard cards out when needed during the main game, during the first game, is a really, really strong effect. And you still got liquid metal coating to be able to shut down certain cards, which is maybe one tack that people might use. Another tack might be just maybe to reduce the amount of cards, maybe go down from 4, maybe to go down to 3 or 2. Otherwise, just utilizing how it was just to get your sideboard pieces in your first match as an important role to play there. So overall, I'm happy with Oko getting banned. Not so high on the Mox Opal. Microsoft players understand why. So that's okay with I'm okay with that ban. Which begs the question, what constitutes getting a card banned? Is it because of its amount of playability and possible impact in future cards being able to utilize that card, like on the Mox Opal, or being a card that just absolutely warps the format, like the Oko? I'm more sitting on the Oko side, having cards that really warp the format, or just really, really strong, and you have really difficult time in dealing with that card. I feel like Mox Opal allows you to play cards quicker, yes, but it's not the core problem in that respect. Anyways, that's really all I have to say about those. There's no other real announcements apart from a little bit of a blurb about Heliod and Walking Ballista being a possible issue in Modern and Pioneer, and they're going to keep an eye on that. So that's kind of like a mini watch list. So we'll see how that goes over the next few months. So now let's talk about Theros Beyond Death and some of the cards that I think are going to be seeing some play in either Standard, Modern, Commander, or Pioneer. And we'll start off with the first with the 5 gods, 5 monocolor gods of the set. So we got Nylea, Keen Iron. It's a 5/6 for 4 mana, 3 and a green. Indestructible legendary enchantment creature god. As long as the devotion to green is less than 5, it isn't a creature. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and then you can pay 2 and a green to reveal the top card of your library. And if it's a creature card, put that into your hand. Otherwise, you may put it into your graveyard. Now, I like the fact that you can put it into your graveyard if it's not a creature card, therefore fueling your graveyard and being able to utilize escape mechanic later on in the game. I can see Nylea probably being played in Standard. I'm not too sure about other formats. I don't feel like it's quite there for something like Pioneer or Modern. Obviously, all these gods are great to have in Commander. But Nylea, I feel like it's more of a Standard card, and that's where it's going to see its play. Perforos, Bronze Blooded, 4 and a red. Again, 7/6, indestructible god, devotion of 5. Otherwise, it's not a creature. Other creatures you control have haste. 2 and a red. You may put a red creature card or an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. Now this, when I first saw it and first read it, I thought it was any creature card, not just a red creature card, but having only a red creature card obviously gives it constraints in terms of its deck building potential. I'm not too sure what card you would want to bring out. In Standard, you got a couple of choices like Ilrag to bring that out, plus another card, so kind of bring out 2 creatures for the price of 3 mana is really, really strong. But I can't really think of what other things you kind of bring out with Perforos. I guess it depends on if anyone can find a creature in red or an artifact creature that really plays strongly with this ability. It might see play in Standard. I can see this definitely seeing play in Commanders, being quite a strong thing to do in there. I'm not too sure about Modern and Pioneer. 5 mana is quite a lot for Modern, and possibly Pioneer. So Standard and Commander is where I would see Perforos. Erebos, the Bleak-Hearted, 3 and a black for a 5/6. Indestructible God. If its devotion to 5 is it is a creature. Whenever another creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life. If you do, draw a card. You may pay 1 and a black and sacrifice another creature to have a target creature gain -2, -1 until end of turn. This is probably, apart from Heliod, I feel like it's the second strongest god, possibly the strongest god in terms of its ability to do different things. Having the ability to draw cards whenever a creature dies and pay 2 life, very, very strong. I can see this being played in Standard and also Commander. Pioneer, if you can kind of have an aristocrat strategy in Pioneer, then this will be a card to have there. Modern, not so much, but I feel like this card is quite strong as a vacuum kind of card, and I feel like if you can build around it, it can be really, really, really strong. That's a Deep Dwelling, 3 in a blue, 6/5, indestructible, version of blue, you know the drill. Beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So flicker effect at the end of your turn, and then 3 and a blue to tap another target creature. 3 and a blue, tap another target creature. That's quite a lot. I feel like if it was at 2 and a blue, it would have fit a bit better. It's quite steep to pay that much money just to tap one creature. The flicker effect can be quite strong if you build around it. This is a really big build around card. I think that's its biggest drawback. Maybe it does see play in Standard. Definitely in Commander, you can abuse the ability. It's kind of like a Conjurer's Closet. But yeah, otherwise, I don't see it doing much else in any other format. And then finally, we've got Heliod, Sun Crowned. 5/5 for 2 and a white. I feel like maybe 2 and a white is a bit low for its commander mana cost. Maybe if they brought it up to 4, would have been a bit better. I feel like 3 mana to bring it up is quite strong, quite quick, quite early in the game. Yeah, you might not have your devotion up to 5 by then, but I think that's something that maybe should have been altered. Anyways, whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. Is its static ability, and then 1 and a white. Another target creature gains life flicker turn to turn. Obviously, everyone's been talking about Walking Ballista and Heliod, and the interactions they have to have infinite damage and life. Yeah, look, this card is going to see play in Pioneer. I believe it's going to get Walking Ballista banned in Pioneer. I feel like you play this with a kind of either green-white, or you can even put it into the black-green and splash the white artifact decks that are running right now. They already got Walking Ballista. You play Hardened Scales, so you can easily go Hardened Scales turn 1, turn 2 Walking Ballista for 1, which actually gets an extra counter, so it's on 2. Turn 3 Heliod, and then turn 4 you win on the spot there. They have to get rid of your Walking Ballista. Or you can just play Heliod on turn 3 after playing a Hardened Scales on turn 1 or 2, and then on turn 4 you play your Walking Ballista for 1 and still have 2 mana available to be able to use its ability and then go infinite. I feel like it's a card that yeah, it's quite strong. It's probably going to get Walking Ballista banned in Pioneer. Modern, it can see play there. I'm not too sure if it's strong enough to be put into the devotion decks that are already running around that do the infinite life, infinite damage, infinite mana, with Devoted Druid and Vizier of Remedies. It could be another card to put in that deck, but I don't see it being a 4 of. I see more of a 1 of, maybe a 2 of, if that. I personally don't think it should be run in those decks. I feel like those decks work well without it, and don't need Heliod. But Pioneer, it's definitely something that can be a bit of a headache for other people if they run into this kind of deck. Standard, probably won't see as much playing standard. Not in the current meta. Modern. Commander. It's not that strong as a commander card. I feel like, Thassa, Perforos, Alia, and Erebos are stronger for commander. If you're taking that route. Then we go to the sagas of the set, and to be honest, I don't really feel like the sagas in this set are amazing. I feel like they're quite underpowered. The best one is Kiora Best, the Sea God, but it does have a hefty price of 5 and 2 blue. But it pretty much can win you the game by itself. Being able to create an 8 blue Kraken creature token with hexproof on its first chapter, and its second chapter tapping all non-land permanents that target player controls or opponent controls, and not untapping on their next untap step. And then chapter 3, getting control of a permanent and opponent controls, and then untapping it. Quite strong, can really change the course of the game. I feel like it can be played in a control like deck and being one of its win conditions, but then again, 7 mana is quite steep. You probably could be doing more at 7 mana. Timer at Cause of Dead. I feel like this card, people kind of compare it to the what do I call it? The Benelish one from Dominaria. Anyways, the one that gave you 2/2 knights over 2 turns and then pumped all your knights by +2/+1. People kind of compare it up to that. Timerette Cause of Dead. You get to put 3 cards from your library into your graveyard, and then you may exile a creature or enchantment card from your graveyard. If you do create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, and then chapter 3 is you gain X life and scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. Look, the matter of fact is that you got to exile your own cards is a drawback. If this was exile any creature or enchantment from any graveyard, then yes, this would be a great card to have. It would remove cards from opponents' graveyards that might be troublesome, as well as giving you a 2/2 body on the battlefield. But you have to get rid of your own enchantments or your own creatures, and that could be, I guess, problematic in a way that if you got a creature that you do want to bring back from the graveyard, if you're trying to play a graveyard strategy, then this kind of negates that in a way at times. So it is a bit of a drawback being only to be able to take away a card from your own graveyard. And then the gaining life and scrying X is really irrelevant. I mean, you're scrying X after you've drawn a card, number 1. So you're scrying for your next turn, and you're getting X life. Unless you're playing a zombie-centric deck, you're only going to be gaining 1-2 life with the tokens that you make. So really irrelevant and really poor as a third chapter. Again, the first rolling games, the last chapter creating a gold token after having it down for 4 turns. Yeah, okay, makes a 1/1 token, puts 3 possible cards on any creature you want to control, and then if you control a creature with power 4 greater, you draw 2 cards. So yeah, you're drawing 2 cards if your creature survives a turn after putting 3 possible cards on it. Okay, it's got a few strong abilities, and then the final ability, creating a gold token, extra mana, after all that, I get the flavor behind it, but still, could have been something a bit better as a final chapter. Chrome War. Gain control of target creature for as long as it's remaining on the battlefield. Pretty good. Doesn't untap the creature though. That would have been great and given haste. Until your next turn, creatures your opponent's control attack you if able. Do you want to have that? It's really a catch-22 there. You might have an opponent that has nothing on board, and that's great. Or they might have a shitload of cards on board, and they're attacking you for a lot of damage, and you're not prepared. You need to play this, you need to build around this, you need to have your board state to be able to utilize this ability in a beneficial way. And then each tap creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. You probably would have attacked and swung back after they attacked you after the second chapter. So you're probably dealing damage to your creatures as well. So again, not a great card, not something that I was think we'll see any play. And then Elspeth Conquers Death. 5 mana, exile target permanent opponent's control with mana cost 3 or greater. Okay, an exile ability, cool. Number 2, non-creature spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast until your next turn. Well, by then we're up to turn 6. So your opponent should have enough mana to be able to pay that tax. Sometimes it might be irrelevant. The deck you're versing might not even play non-creature spells necessarily. And then the third chapter, return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to the battlefield, putting a plus a possible counter or a loyalty counter on it. Yeah, it's cool, quite strong, but by then you're up to turn 7, turn 8. I feel like it might be a bit too late to be getting that ability. 5 mana is quite a lot. Maybe bringing this down to 4 mana might have helped a little bit. So again, not something I'm really high on in terms of sagas for this set. Then for the other mythics, look, Nyx Bloom Ancient, I'm not going to go much about it. Triple mana, it's just going to see playing Commander, nowhere else, let's be honest. Otherwise, it's pretty much a bulk rare, in my opinion. Ox of Agonas, unless it sees play in Dredge in Modern, again, could be another bulk rare, but that does have potential in Modern in the Dredge decks. Being able to discard your hand and then start dredging, probably as early as turn 2, you could probably get this online if it's in your graveyard, using it for escape cost. You're hardly ever going to play it for its full cost. It'll always be played for its escape cost. And then we go to the Planeswalkers. So we got Elspeth, Sun's Nemesis, 2 and 2 white for 5 loyalty Planeswalker with all minus abilities. -1, up to 2 target creatures you control get +2/+1 to end a turn. -2, create 2/1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, and -3, you gain 5 life. Good card for control decks, possibly to rerunning, because it has the escape ability for 4 and 2 white, exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. Bring it back from the graveyard repeatedly. That's a lot of value. Do not underestimate the value you get from this escape mechanic, especially on a Planeswalker. Yes, you can only minus it, but you're going to be able to put 2 or 4 bodies each time on the battlefield, and then bring it back and do it again and do it again. It's just going to prolong the game for you. And if you're playing control-like deck, that is exactly what you want. So I can see this card seeing play in Standard, and being quite strong in Standard. That's my prediction for this card. Pioneer, maybe not so much. Modern, maybe not so much, but definitely Standard. This will be an all-star card. We got Ashiok as our next Planeswalker. Another card that I think, or Planeswalker, I think we'll see a lot of play in Standard. And I think Pioneer, this card is quite good in Pioneer. 3 and a blue and a black for 5 loyalty, +1. Create a 2/3 blue and black nightmare creature token with whenever this creature attacks or blocks, each opponent exiles the top 2 cards of their library. Putting a body down, 2/3 body, it's quite strong, especially in Pioneer, where you can't get Wild Slashed. Fatal Push does get rid of it, but it puts a blocker down, and I feel like it's quite a strong 2/3 is quite strong for a token creature. So definitely a good +1 ability. -3 returning target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then if that player exiles a card from their hand. So it is getting rid of a card, basically exiling a card. It might not be necessarily a card that you return back to their hand, but if they've got no cards in their hand, then it's pretty much -3 to exile any non-land permanent, which is really strong. The -3 is incredibly strong. -7, you may cast up to 3 face-up cards your opponents own from exile without paying their mana cost. Obviously, it depends on what you've exiled throughout the game. Don't forget, it's any face-up card that you've exiled. So if you played other spells that have the ability to exile things face-up, then you can utilize this ability for those cards. So not necessarily what A Shock has exiled. So overall, quite strong. I reckon it can see play in Standard. Maybe there's not quite enough cards yet to make it a Tier 1 deck at the moment in the current meta, but we'll soon find out. But in Pioneer, this could be quite a strong card, especially if you utilize it with other Ashioks and other cards like maybe Kaya. That's something to kind of think about in Pioneer. Also having the ability to strip your opponents with Thoughtseizers and Duresses in an early game, so that they won't have as many cards left in their hand later on in the game when Ashok does come down and you use that -3 ability. Finally, we've got Calyx, Destiny's Hand, 2 green and a white for a 4 Loyalty Planeswalker. +1, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. An ability that you need to really work around and build around Calyx, having enchantments that are relevant. Also in green and white, I feel like black and white might have been a better color choice for Calyx, but it's something that's not something that you would necessarily want to be doing unless you're really niche in terms of your game plan and your deck being enchantment centric. -3, exile target creature enchantment you don't control until target enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. So you need to have enchantment already on the battlefield before you can even -3. So it's really determined on having enchantments in your deck. This card, it's just a really weak ability overall. -7, return all enchantment cards from your go to your battlefield. Can be really strong. The only place I see this being played is Commander. I don't see it being played anywhere else. It is a bulk mythic rare in my case. I don't think you see this card being any more than $2 in the near future. Then we got Aetherios, Shroud Veiled as the buy box promo. Great card for Commander. 4 white and black for 4/7, indestructible. As long as devotion to white and black is less than 7, Aetherios isn't a creature. Beginning of your end step, put a coin counter on another target creature. Whenever a creature with a coin counter on it dies or is put into exile, return it back to the battlefield under your control. This can be played on any creature. The coin, you can put it on any target creature, an opponent's target creature, or your own. And the ability for it to come back if it was destroyed or exiled is amazing. That means that either way, that card is coming back to you. The only way they can stop that card coming back to you is if they kill you or get rid of Aetherios itself. And it being indestructible means it needs to be exiled. A great card for Commander. That's about what it's going to see playing. It might see playing Standard. You never know. But I don't think it'll fit anywhere else. 6 mana is quite high for constructive formats. It doesn't do a whole lot for 6 mana by itself. It doesn't win you the game by itself. It's just a really good value engine. So yeah, Commander is where I see it being played. Klothys, God of Destiny, 1 a red and a green, 4/5 indestructible. God, as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, it is a creature. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a land card, add red or green to your mana pool. Otherwise, you gain 2 life and it deals 2 damage to each opponent. 3 mana makes this quite strong. Being able to play this on turn 2, possibly. In Standard or Pioneer. In Modern, for that fact. And then having a card that cares about your opponent's graveyard in green and red is quite strong. Something that we haven't really seen before in these colors. Any drawback it really has is it doesn't immediately do something when it comes to play. You gotta wait until your next turn to be able to exile something from a graveyard. But other than that, it is quite strong. It's quite relevant to be able to gain 2 life and deal 2 damage. It's a win condition in itself. If anything, the ramping ability might come into play at times, but you're mostly trying to do the 2 damage and gain 2 life. Then we've got the 2 Elder Giants. We've got Croxa, Titan of Death's Hunger for black and a red. It's a 6/6 legendary creature. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. The escape cost is 2 black, 2 red, and exiling 5 other cards from your graveyard. And then it has it enters the battlefield ability and attack ability. So whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, each opponent discards a card. Then each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses 3 life. So if they discard a land, they'll lose 3 life. If they discard anything that's not a land, they don't lose the 3 life. Alright, 2 mana to make them discard a card, possibly lose 3 life. It's quite strong in Standard, Pioneer as well. But I'm not really high on this one. I don't think it's going to be as good as people believe it to be. Most of the time, you're not going to make them lose 3 life. You're going to make them discard a card. Yeah, it can be, if you bring it out on turn 2 and then escape it on turn 4, it can be relevant. It can kind of strip your opponent of cards in their hands, but later on in the game, it doesn't really do anything at all. Unless the ability makes them lose 3 life if they can't discard anything, if they got nothing in hand. I'm not sure what the rules are for Croxa. I'll have to look that up, but unless that is a thing, then yeah, okay, that brings it up a bit more in terms of its playability. But if they have no cards to discard and this ability doesn't trigger, then you're really not getting much value from Croxa. Whereas on the other hand, Uru, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Now this is a card that is really pushed. 1, a green and a blue for 6/6 Elder Giant. You have to sacrifice it unless it's escaped. Escape cost is 2 green, 2 blue, and exiling 5 other cards from your graveyard. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life. You draw a card. Then, that wasn't enough. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield, so you get an extra land drop that turn. Unbelievable card. It gives you so much for so little. 3 mana to be able to gain 3 life, draw a card, and play an extra land. And then when it comes into the battlefield later or attacks later, it does that again and again and again. Gives you card advantage, gets you life, and then ramps you up to bigger things. It's already a massive thing and a massive threat. Imagine if you can play this alongside Hydrocrasis. It's just going to be really difficult to get rid of, especially if you can't exile it. Because because he can just come back with his escape cost. I can see this team play Pioneer, definitely Standard, definitely Commander, and if in Modern I can see this team playing, this could even go back to Legacy or Vintage kind of realm, possibly. I'm not an expert on those formats, but I feel that this card is one of the strongest cards I've ever seen. Period. So definitely a card that's going to be the chase card of the set. Then kind of finalize the mythics, since we've kind of been talking about it. We got Polychronos Unchained, 2 green and a black for a 0/0 legendary creature zombie Hydra. Enters the battlefield with 6 +1/+ counters on it. If it escaped, it comes in with 12 +1/+ counters instead. Damage should be dealt to it while it has a +1/+ counter on it. Prevent that damage and remove that many +1/+ counters from it. 1, a black and a green. You can have it fight another target creature, and its escape cost is 4 black and a green, and exiling 6 other cards from your graveyard. It's a big bomb to have, maybe in Standard. Maybe in Pioneer you can play it in the harder scales, Mighty Constrictor kind of deck. But that's really all I see it being seen played in. Of course, Commander, it could see playing that in like Attractor builds. But yeah, probably Standard, Pioneers where it might see play, if any play at all. So overall, I think the mythics in this set are quite strong. The rares, not so much. There's a couple of rares I want to talk about. I feel like the interventions, we need a bit of a mention. We got Heliod's intervention, being able to destroy X-type artifacts or enchantments. Might be relevant in the Standard format. Good card to have possibly in Commander. Thassa's intervention, I feel, is the strongest intervention out of all the cards. All the interventions, sorry. Being able to pay X and 2 blue to either look at the top X cards of your library and then put 2 cards into your hand and the rest at the bottom in random order, or counter target spell unless control pays twice X. So for 3 mana, you got a spell that can counter unless the opponent pays 2. And then for 2 and 2 blue, you can draw 2 cards into speed, don't forget. Then Erebos intervention, probably my pick for number 2 in terms of the second best intervention. X and a black instant. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, you gain X life. Or exile up to twice X target cards from graveyards. Quite flexible. A card that can see play in Standard. Not sure if we'll see play anywhere else. Possibly Pioneer again. But I feel like there's stronger cards out there that do more. Permafrost intervention. Create an X1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Then sacrificing it beginning of your next end step. Or to deal twice X damage to target creature or player. It's a sorcery speed. Is again a card that can probably see play in Standard, but other than that, I don't see it seeing any play. Nalia's intervention, X and 2 green. Search your library for up to X land cards, roll them, and put them in your hand. Or it does twice X damage to each creature with flying. A bit of ramp, but not really ramping in that fact. You're just getting the cards into your hand. It can be any land card, which is a kind of an upside. But 2 green X, sorcery speed, it's pretty weak. And it's situational if in terms of the second ability, destroying creatures with flying. The cards that I think that are going to see play in other formats would be Thassa's Oracle, see play in Modern. 2 blue for a Merfolk Wizard, 1/3. It's going to be a card that goes into Neo form or Neo brand decks, where its ability is that it has an enter the battlefield ability to look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue, and put one into your top of your library and the rest at the bottom of your library. If X is greater than 1 or equal, If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. So if you would play this in Modern with Neo brand, be able to play throughout your whole deck with Griselbrand to draw everything, play Thassa's Oracle, you get to enter the battlefield ability, you win the game automatically. It takes over Laboratory Maniac, where Laboratory Maniac, you're going to play it, wait till your next turn, you upkeep to win the game. So it is able to be destroyed by removal, where Thassa's Oracle doesn't matter if it gets removed, the ETB ability goes on the stack, so as long as that resolves, you're sweet, you will win the game on the spot. Shadow the Sky, 2 and 2 white. Each player controls a creature with power 4 or greater, draws a card, then destroy all creatures. This card is quite strong as a Wrath. It's a card that I can definitely see playing in Pioneer and Standard, and obviously Commander. Very, very strong card. I think having the ability to play Planeswalkers like Gideon, and have them be indestructible, and then playing this and then swing in with your Gideons, might be a thing in Pioneer to do. Maybe a spoiler for some of my deck techs coming out. So keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, you got Woe Strider being able to sacrifice any creature to scry 1. Something that we can play in Pioneer and abuse that possibly. We'll see what happens there. Underworld Breach, 1 in a red enchantment. This is probably one of the strongest cards in the set. Each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost equals to the card's converted mana cost, plus exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard. So if you can get enough mana, playing this and then be able to play anything from your graveyard for that turn, and exiling some cards, it's quite strong. I can see this team play possibly in Modern. You have to sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step, the enchantment itself, but it's something that can definitely be abused in older formats, so keep an eye out for that. Then we got Dryad of the Ilsian Grove, 2 and a green, 2/4. You can play additional land on each of your turns. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. A card that we'll see play in Modern, I believe, in the Titan Shift decks. Having the ability to have every basic land type for all your lands means that they'll count as mountains. So you can play your Valakuts down and they will include themselves as a mountain. So once you have 5 lands on the battlefield and Dryad of Ilsian on the Grove on the battlefield, then you'll be starting to trigger the Valakut abilities. And also having the ability to play an additional land on each of your turns to ramp out into Primeval Titan is a great ability to have. So that's kind of most of the cards that I wanted to talk about. For Theros Beyond Death, those are the cards I feel like are going to see the most play. I guess you got like Kuranos, Hound of Aetherios. That'd be a great card for Standard, possibly Pioneer. Being able to have a Grafdigger's Cage ability on a creature can be relevant in those formats. And then Galia of the Endless Dance, I feel like that's quite a strong card for Standard, maybe even Pioneer. Giving it 2/2 with haste, other satires you control, get +1/+1 and have haste. There's not too many satires in the set, but that's still quite a strong ability, something to keep in mind for the future. And then when it attacks with 3 or more creatures, or whenever you attack, it doesn't have to be necessarily Galia herself. You may discard a card at random and then draw 2 cards, so you get a card advantage in aggro's decks, which is really good to have. Uncommon wise, Staggering Insight I think is probably the best card in the uncommon slot, apart from Field of Ruin. Being able to enchant a creature and give it +1/+1 lifelink, and whenever it does combination to a player to draw a card. I see that same play possibly in Standard amongst other formats. You got Nyx Lotus and Shadowspear as your artifacts. Nyx Lotus, I don't know if that's going to be so relevant in the older formats, being at 4 mana. Maybe Standard, maybe Pioneer. Commander, it might see play. Pioneer, even then, I don't think it'd be seeing that much play in that format. You've already got the land that does exactly the same thing in Pioneer. Shadow Spear is pretty good for enchantment. 1 mana, place down 2 to equip, gives +1/+1 and trample and lifelink to a creature. And then for 1, you can give permanents to your opponent's control, losing hexproof, indestructible to end of turn. That can be quite relevant in some matchups. So it could be a sideboard piece in Standard and maybe Pioneer. So that's really it for the breakdown of Theros Beyond Death and the cards that I think were worth mentioning and talking about. So if you have any ideas or any comments that you want to discuss, please put it in the comment section below. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. As usual, everything on the stack has resolved, and good games, everyone.